Hello and good evening. I'm so excited to be reading to you again. And this past weekend, I was thinking of this read aloud when Sunday's weather felt exactly like summertime. Now, I must say, summer is my favorite season because I get to do all of my favorite activities. I love to go to the beach, I love to swim in a pool, I love to spend time with my friends and my family. But there's one thing that I really loved to do when I was about your age, and I would do it at nighttime. Can you think of what it might have been? I loved to catch fireflies. And when I was teaching in the classroom, I would read this story to my second graders and my third graders, and they would tell me lots about their experiences catching fireflies, and I got to share my own. So I thought, what better book to read than Fireflies by Julie Brinklow. Now, this is a story about a little boy who gets excited about catching fireflies, and then he gets to do that with all of his friends. But something happens when he decides to bring the jar of fireflies home for the evening. Let's read to find out what happens and then what he does about it. One summer evening, I looked up from my dinner through the open window to the backyard. It was growing dark. My treehouse was a black shape in the tree, and I wouldn't go up there now. Gets a little spooky at nighttime. But something flickered there a moment. I looked, and it was gone. It flickered again over near the fence. Fireflies. Don't let your dinner get cold, said Mama. I forked the meat and corn and potatoes into my mouth. Please, may I go out? The fireflies. Mama smiled and Daddy nodded. Go ahead, they said. I ran from the table down to the cellar to find a jar. I knew where to look, behind the stairs. The jars were dusty, and I polished one clean on my shirt. Then I ran back up 2 steps at a time. Holes, I remembered, so they can breathe. As quietly as I could, so she wouldn't catch me dulling them, I poked holes in the top of the jar with Mama's scissors. The screen door banged behind me as I ran from the house. If someone said, "Don't slam it," I wasn't listening. I was way too excited to get outside. I called to my friends in the street, "Fireflies!" But they had come before me with polished jars, and others were coming behind. The sky was darker now. My ears rang with crickets and my eyes stung from staring too long. I blinked hard as I watched them. Fireflies, blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making white patterns in the dark. We ran like crazy, barefoot in the grass. Catch them, we cried, grasping at the lights. Suddenly, a voice called out above the others, I caught one, and it was my own. I thrust my hand into the jar and spread it open. The jar glowed like moonlight, and I held it in my hands. I felt a tremble of joy and shouted, I can catch hundreds. Then we dashed about, waving our hands in the air like nets, catching 2, 10, hundreds of fireflies, thrusting them into jars, waving our hands for more. Then someone called from my house, "It's time to come in now." And others called from their houses, and it was over. My friends took jars of fireflies to different homes. I climbed the stairs to my room and set the jar on a table by my bed. Mama kissed me and turned out the light. "I caught hundreds," I said. Daddy called from the hallway, "See you later, alligator." "After a while, crocodile," I called back. I caught hundreds of fireflies. I remember feeling that excitement. And then I also experienced this too, but don't worry, the story ends well. In the dark, I watched the fireflies from my bed. They blinked on, off, and on, and the jar glowed like moonlight. But it was not the same. The fireflies beat their wings against the glass and fell to the bottom and lay there. Because that's not where they're supposed to be, right? They're supposed to be out in the nighttime sky. The light in the jar turned yellow, like a flashlight left on too long. I tried to swallow, but something in my throat would not go down. I think he's telling us and showing us that he knew something wasn't quite right. And then the light grew dimmer, green, like moonlight underwater. I wonder what's going to happen. I shut my eyes tight and I put my pillow over my head. They were my fireflies. I caught them. They made moonlight in my jar. But the jar was nearly dark now. I flung off the covers. I went to the window, opened the jar, and boys and girls, he did something so incredibly brave. And I aimed it at the stars. Fly. And guess what happened? The jar began to glow again. Green, then gold, then white as the moon. And the fireflies poured out into the night. Fireflies, blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making circles around the moon like stars dancing. I held the jar, dark and empty, in my hands. The moonlight and the fireflies swam in my tears, but I could feel myself smiling. So although it was very difficult to let go all of those fireflies that he had caught, he knew he was doing something good, and he knew that these fireflies were happy again. So he's happy because he helped make something else happy too. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you are looking forward to that summer weather just like I am. Take care and have a wonderful night. Sweet dreams.